Reagan, thank you for that live report. Now at 6, this is a story that we've been following out of West Springfield since last month. Community concerns over the potential closure of the Mittineague Elementary School.
Well, there's an update tonight, and that'll affect how the town moves forward with restructuring their school department, thanks in part to a community petition to keep those doors open. Western Mass News reporter Wesley Days has all of our bases covered tonight, and he spoke directly with a concerned parent, a town councilor, and the mayor. And Wesley, we're not just talking about a change to one school. We're talking about a district-wide impact.
Exactly, Abby and Chris. Those closed doors could have meant more than just hundreds of kids being moved. We could have seen a new centralized elementary school that closed the doors of other neighborhood schools in the area. But now Mayor Will Reichelt tells me a new potential plan is in place to keep kids in their districts.
It feels really good knowing that my child's going to be at the school again next year.
A petition with power just over a month after West Springfield School Committee voted 4-2 to close Mittineague Elementary over an independent study that found keeping the school open would have negative fiscal effects. Parents like Rachel Knowles fought back.
In December, they just kind of got us together and said, hey, school committee's meeting next week, and they're recommending shutting down Mittineague or relocating students.
After that January 9th meeting, residents had 30 days to gather 2,400 petition signatures for the town to reconsider. Within 18 days, they got 2,700 in the town's attention.
Neighborhoods make up West Springfield. It is a collection of neighborhoods that are grounded by an elementary school. If you take the elementary schools out of the neighborhoods, you fundamentally transform West Springfield.
Western Mass News spoke with Counselor at Large Daniel O'Brien, who says the problem is deeper than just one school. That closure could have led to a new large centralized school that could have meant the end of community classrooms.
It resonated with residents who aren't in that neighborhood, but who didn't agree with the process, who thought the process wasn't transparent.
Well, we took those concerns up one floor here at West Springfield's Town Hall to the mayor's office to hear what he had to say about concerns over lack of transparency.
Looking back, I do think we could have done a better job around keeping everyone else up to date because the Mittineague community didn't keep their own community up to date. I understand where they're coming from with the frustration. And they did a good job in getting all the signatures to have us revisit this.
That large school idea has been demolished, and what stands in its place is a new idea for renovation to the current schools, a plan that will be taken up in the future.
The statement of interest will be filed for John Ashley, which is our kindergarten, and Fawsey, which is our largest elementary school. And combining those two and having a preschool through 5th grade school on the Fawsey campus. And one thing I definitely heard from the community throughout this process was they like the neighborhood school model.
He tells us Tatum already has some portable classrooms. They plan to connect those to the school hopefully this summer, and plans for Memorial are still in process. But for the school that was just recently kept open,
Mittineague, we wouldn't do that because the parcel is just too small, and with declining enrollments across the district regardless, it doesn't make as much sense.
Take a look at their decision on Mittineague at the end of the month. If they still feel like they should close the school down, the public will have a chance to vote on it at the polls in an undecided election time. Speaking about these improvement plans, Abby and Chris, they're still up in the air. They'll be discussed at that same meeting. Now, when it comes to paying for these potential improvements to these schools, no price tag has been set. Reporting live in studio, Wesley Days, Western Mass News.